The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
The 2024 Battle of Evergreen Park has already begun, folks. Welcome to the EP Podcast. Voting began on Monday morning for the first half of round one, and that will conclude on Tuesday evening. So the same day this episode comes out, half of round one will already be decided by the time you go to bed tonight. The other half of the bracket, the rest of the round one matchups, starts off on Wednesday and runs through the end of Thursday. We're going to get 32 down to 16 very quickly here. And you can vote directly at theeppodcast.com. I have the link right at the top of the page. You can also find the link and all updated links as we move from round to round on social media through our Facebook page and through Instagram. Vote early, vote often. We're talking restaurants, we're talking eateries, dessert places, ice cream shops. We got a whole section on what's going on over at the Plaza, the best pizza in Evergreen Park. And as we move from round to round, if you are subscribed to the EP Podcast, anywhere podcasts can be found, and also through the eppodcast.com, you will get results. Next couple of weeks, we're going to figure out who is the champion of Evergreen Park in 2024. This episode is packed. We have the Superintendent of District 124, Dr. Jenna Woodland, to come in and tell us all about what's happening in your local schools. And we have Michael Flood from Flood Brothers to answer questions posed by residents about the new garbage collection service that has now been with us for about 7.5 months. It is all brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. I was out this weekend and I had to go hit an ATM, and there was a fee on there. $5 to use the ATM. That's absurd. I was not worried about it. You want to know why? They're going to put the fee back in my account. Every ATM is free through the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. That's what you get if you have a checking account with them, that total access checking account, free ATMs nationwide, $300 bonus with qualifying activities. The mobile banking tools allow you to keep track of everything going on, and they have award-winning customer service. Switch to a true community bank now. It has never been easier. No minimum monthly balance, no monthly maintenance fees. A lot of banks put fees in there just for you to have an account with them. Why do you have to pay a bank to keep your money? That does not happen at the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Stop in and see them. That big iconic building on the corner of 95th and Pulaski, member FDIC. Sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar. Always love it when she stops by. The Superintendent of District 124, Dr. Jenna Woodland. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, we're busy here. You noticed it when you walked in. We're busy.
You're always busy.
My firstborn is moving all of her stuff out of her room into my living room before we take her to college on Saturday. I am adjusting to the idea that one of my children is leaving. There's a lot going on here right now. Plus, you have to get the other kids ready, right? Like, I have a grammar school kid getting ready. I've got one that's in high school that I just looked at the other day and said, "Have you even gotten your books for summer reading?" And he was like, "No." So he's up there right now reading My Antonia. And he's trying to just cram it all into the last couple of days before he starts back. So we're busy here. School has jumped up on the children of the Lanuti household like they didn't expect it to happen.
It is always that time of year, especially as soon as you hit, I feel like after the 4th of July, people start to think about school sooner rather than later. You see the school supply aisle and everyone just thinks about, how do I get ready for the start of the school year? So I'm here to give you the 411, Chris.
Okay. I mean, look, I love having you here, but I will tell you this. I was walking through a store last week and there was somebody on the phone and they were talking about how summer just flew by. And I'm like, August just started. Like, it's still summer to me.
I
know. I'm not going back to school. So you are like the not so gentle reminder that things are changing. But I mean, it's exciting, I know, for the kids, and they're getting back there. And you're going to kick it off with the back to school bash as you do every year on the 22nd, right?
The first day of school. Yeah. August 22nd, Thursday of next week. And then of course, this year we also have a weather delayed on August 29th. In the event, we have a super hot day or rain.
That's a good idea, because what was it last year? You couldn't do it because the blacktop was too hot?
The blacktop was reading at like 120 degrees. So obviously a little bit of a safety concern on our part, and we tried to reschedule, but...
You don't want to kick off the year cooking the children.
No, probably a bad idea.
So Thursday the 22nd, when school kicks off, you got the foam machine out there. You're going to have music out there. There'll be different tents out there. EP Podcast is going to be out there. I don't know if you want to get into details of it. But then the week after is your rain date, 5:30, I believe, until 7 is when this is happening.
That's
and it's
correct.
For everybody. You do not have to have a kid in the school. It's a community event, right?
It is a community event. We encourage anyone to come out and celebrate our schools and really collaborate with us. It's always a time for any community member to share feedback with us. We're always looking to improve, and I welcome anyone to join us.
You like that party, don't you? I've been there before when you're there. You walk around, you enjoy that. I think most of the administrators and the teachers really like that. That's kind of a fun event for them for the whole year, kicking it off.
Yes, it's a fun event for the whole year, and it's just a good way to just start the school year off right. So we look forward to it, and we really appreciate the foundation. They're the ones who really put this all together. So just to speak to the foundation, they're a group of really great parent volunteers who are really just willing to give back to our community. So I can't thank them enough. And if anyone wants to sponsor the event, they can reach out to either myself directly, or there's a foundation link on our website.
Okay. So you talked about outreach. You talked about speaking to the community. From what I understand, you did a whole thing to try to get feedback on all the facilities. Because if you think about it, you've got 4 schools plus Central School. I mean,
yes.
you have so many different things that fall under your purview. And so that's a lot to cover, and a lot of things that are at different ages and different stages and have different capabilities. So have you learned a lot from it?
Yes, we did. I was so glad. Like last year, we actually hired a new architect. I think I shared that with you last school year. And then we engaged in a community process to really receive feedback from our teachers, our students, our parents, to really essentially say, what do we need to do to better suit our learning environment? As you know, we have mobiles in all 4 of our elementary buildings, and we are looking to long-term address space. And then also Central Middle School, we just found out, we were looking at some old documents. It's going to be 100 years old in 2027. So obviously a building of that age always needs updates, and we just want to make sure we provide the best for our kids and their learning environment.
That's amazing. That's 100 years old.
Yeah,
that
it's
building.
crazy, right?
Yeah, that is nuts.
Yes.
Wow. So now you got to plan a party for that, first of all.
Yeah,
but then you got to make sure it's structurally sound, and anything that needs to be fixed inside of it.
Exactly.
So now everybody put in the input. Was there anything anybody like really stood out to you that
Yes.
like there were like specifics that like you were like, wow, there's a lot of people saying the same thing about this?
Yes, I would definitely say a lot with air quality control was something that came up, HVAC. So we're definitely looking into that. And Northeast, they actually received a new HVAC unit this summer, and fingers crossed it will be ready to rock and roll the first day of school. So we're really happy to have centralized air in that building, and something that we can provide for our kids, because those, I'm sure you've seen the old window units, are just so loud and noisy and just don't keep our kids in the best shape in terms of learning, because they're distracting. So we're happy to be able to provide that for our students at Northeast.
Cool. So now we met a couple of months ago on this podcast. Everybody met him. I met him in person. You have a new principal, new associate principal over at Central Middle School.
Yes.
And they were talking about how they were bringing in deans.
Yes.
Like a high school would have. And from what I understand, you have 2 new deans. Take me through this. Remind everybody about the new structure over there and what you're doing, because I think it's fascinating. The adding of deans, I think, is really cool. I think when you have that individual school, like I grew up in Catholic schools, right? So I did kindergarten through 8th grade in the same school, and then only switched when I went to high school. And that's when I ran into deans. But if you think about it, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they're pretty close to that freshman year of high school. They probably need a little bit more attention than a 4th grader does or below. So I love the idea when I heard it. Take me through it.
Yes. So I am thrilled that we really looked at the structure of our administrative staff at Central Middle School. And this really came from direct feedback from both parents and teachers in terms of how do we really allow our students to be really strategic on providing restorative measures, so preventative measures before we get to disciplinary outcomes, and then B, how do we support our students when we do have to administer consequences? And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I will just call it out. We've had turnover in our principal team at Central Middle School, and sometimes you have to just say, let's revise our plan and make sure that we're doing this appropriately. And so over the course of time, we've added a social worker. We've really looked at increasing our wraparound services at Central Middle School. And the next step was to really expand our student needs in terms of having 2 deans. And so I'm thrilled that we hired 2 deans, and they are going to be fabulous for our community and be our students. And I can't wait for them to start.
What kind of back and forth do you get, if any, between, Central Middle School and the high school, District 124 and District 231? Because 231 knows, those kids get in there.
Yes.
So if they notice something, they probably come back to you and be like, hey, it'd be great if you guys did this at this level before they got to us. And you probably ask them, what do you need, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, we sat down last spring when we were going towards this model with one of their assistant principals who really gave us a lot of great feedback on how we could implement this in our own buildings. And then also we have cross-articulation meetings they really discuss curriculum and instruction. We are always looking for alignment with our high school, and they are just overall been a huge support, and we look to continue that.
Now, I would imagine most people listening to this, unless they're a teacher, like my sister's a high school teacher, right? So if I were to say this out loud without prefacing it as, this is what most people think, because if you like, Chris, if you think that, she's going to come over here and smack me in the head. Most people think that you just took the last couple months off.
Oh, gosh, if only. I wish.
You see, that's the same reaction I get. I'm like, well, you just had a couple of months off, and she looks like she wants to rip my face off when I say that to her. She's like, I work in the summer too. I think we just all assume that because the kids are gone. So it's been a busy summer, I would imagine. Like, what were the highlights for you over the last couple of months getting ready for this year?
It has been a busy summer. And I would say our curriculum department is always the busiest in the summer. And then I would say next, our office and our student support services, just really looking to gear up to support kids. Ultimately, last week I had my first administrative kickoff with my administrative team, where we really look at planning for the vision of the school district, which I'll be sharing with the board at our weekly board meeting, or our monthly board meeting, I apologize, this upcoming Wednesday, and really talking about all of our goals aligned to our strategic plan. And so it's a time for us to look at data, assess systems, to make sure we are fully staffed, which I am so proud, knock on wood, we are fully staffed. And this is the first time I can say that within my term at Evergreen Park. And so I just have to give a shout out to my team. I think we've done a lot with branding the district and making sure we're sharing our story. And my HR department is just fabulous. So I'm very pleased with all our recruitment efforts as well.
You have 5 schools full of teachers. That's a lot. I mean, like, you have your team and you have the principals at all these schools, right?
Yes.
And those are probably the people you work with the closest. Do you ever get nervous when you're out in public, somebody's going to walk up and be like, I work for you, and you're not exactly sure who it is? Or are you really good with keeping track of all of the names and all of the people that are inside of your schools? And do they ever get a chance to talk to you? Or is it like a big giant chain of command thing where like a teacher goes, I have an idea, but I got to talk to 3 people before it gets up to Jenna?
Well, I will tell you, I work really hard to be present in our buildings. That's super important to me. And I value the voice of a classroom teacher because they're the boots on the ground working with our kids. But ultimately, I have been told I'm pretty good at names. So I do think that's important in building relationships. But obviously, I do have 275 staff members.
It's a lot of people underneath you.
It's a lot of people.
I could not keep track of that. I used to do morning radio, and I think the biggest show that I ever had something like 9 or 10 people that would come in and out. And I would every once in a while have to look at a producer and be like, who's that guy? He's one of your interns. How long's he been here? Couple of months. I'm like, all right, just remind me his name next time he comes in here. So that's a lot to keep track of.
It is. But I enjoy it, and I enjoy the moving pieces. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they're the people who serve our kids. So I'm happy to do it.
What are you most excited about for this school year?
I am most excited about Central. I will say that. Dr. Moeller, she's the new principal there. I've worked with a lot of administrators in my day and my time, and she is just super stellar. And in fact, this weekend I just received a message from Christina Lavin, the associate principal, who didn't have to say this to me, and she just said, this is the first year where I really feel like we're ahead of the game. And so I think that they have a dynamic team, and people who really support kids and support teachers and believe in the community. And I can't wait to kick it off on the right start.
You know, I've heard so much over the last couple of years, and I've seen you work really hard at it. And even though you have had turnover at Central, I have seen that there's a real, like a will that is being put into it. The idea that we're going to improve this school, we're going to keep this school, growing, and we're going to make things stronger, and we're going to address things that may be issues over there. It's hard to keep everybody happy. I would imagine you try to stay off the Facebook groups because
I do.
That's the same thing I do. Like I just did an episode for my podcast, my Socks in the Basement podcast, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the most listened to episodes I had done. I did this massive live event. Everybody was happy with it. I had Rock 95.5 out there at Cork and Carry at the park. The place was absolutely packed. I come out of it. I got a big smile on my face. I opened up my email and I got one guy who wrote me an angry message and didn't think I was funny. And it's hard to read those things when you're working your butt off and everybody else, like the majority likes it. And it must be hard to deal with that. But I see it. I see what's happening. I can see the effort.
Yes. It's important to us. I think at the end of the day, our community deserves the best. And I do want Central to be seen as our flagship school. Like that is where all of our kids should go and should feel valued and supportive and feel that they belong in that learning environment. And so ultimately at the end of the day, it's about continuous improvement. And I know that we will get there for sure.
Dr. Jenna Woodland, she's the Superintendent of District 124. Again, Thursday, August 22nd, mark your calendar whether or not you have a kid in the school system. It is a big community party. The Back to School Bash over at Central Middle School kicks off at 5:30, goes until 7. There are going to be all kinds of things for the kids. We'll be out there as well. There's just going to be a lot of fun. Come on out, see everybody, enjoy it. You can get more information about that event and also everything going on in District 124 at d124.org. And I appreciate you jumping on.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris.
Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. It is now time for your EP podcast, Word on the Street, brought to you by Spoken Vine Wine Bar and Bottle Shop, northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie, where I was trying out new wines and new styles that I have never had before just this past weekend. And you always meet the most interesting people at the bar, like the guy that got there a little late for his blind date, and luckily, she was late as well. The food is spectacular. You find a wine that you like, you buy it in the bottle shop, you bring it home. 21 and over establishment. See more at SpokenVineWines.com. CSX has notified the village upcoming temporary closure of the railroad crossing at 95th and Rockwell. It kicks off on August 19th. Gross. The closure is necessary to make needed improvements, and guess what? It's going to last until September the 2nd. Ugh. Start planning on a better way to get down 95th Street between Kedzie and Western. Make plans for a Labor Day summer concert, the last of the summer concert season. Rich Daniels and the City Lights Orchestra performing at James J. Sexton Park, 91st and Rockwell on September the 2nd. Kicks off at 5 p.m. Food and beverages there for you to purchase, and fireworks following the concert at dusk, all brought to you by the Evergreen Park Recreation Department. Rich Daniels will be down at this bar on the very next episode of the EP podcast. A lot of people have been asking, how do I get my vehicle sticker? If you pay attention on the EP podcast, the village canceled that already. There are no village stickers, so don't worry about it. And a quick heads up, the village is going to be conducting a program to identify locations where stormwater is entering the village sanitary sewer system, and that includes smoke testing. That's going to begin on August 21st. It's going to last for about a week. If you are an area that is getting smoke tested, you will get a letter. The smoke is non-toxic, low odor, and is harmless, but if you have questions, you can contact the water department at 708-229-3361. You can hear all about what the water department does on a very recent episode of the EP podcast. Find that on demand anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at the eppodcast.com. At the beginning of the year, Evergreen Park made a switch, going with a different service to handle all of their garbage collection. Flood Brothers, which is a family business going back generations, I have learned, and one of the many floods that work over at Flood Brothers and make things run smoothly over there. Michael Flood joins me on the line right now. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to our conversation to hopefully give some light to the new contract in Evergreen Park and give some assurance to the residents within the community. The
thing that excited me when you came in was that it was easier for me to get some answers when I made phone calls. Before, a lot of things I wanted to do, I had to schedule them online. If I tried to call somebody, it took a long time to get through. I think I had a question 2-3 weeks in about an old basketball hoop that I wanted to get rid of. And I dialed the number and got a human being, and I sat there and described what I was talking about. And they're like, yeah, we can do it. We'll do it this way. It was nice to be able to just talk to somebody. They were able to answer the question. They told me exactly what to do. That was the first thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of who we are and how we try to differentiate ourselves from the other providers in the area. Is we're a local call center. It's obviously a family-owned and operated business, but we have a great team in place. We try to do our best to train and educate our staff within the new communities we service. But we're not a regional call center. It's not an automated system. It's live people. You pick up the phone, you can call them, you can get online and shoot an email or a message, and somebody's going to get back to you. And that's what kind of helps. I think attention to service, customer service is what drives this business. When you need something done and you need an answer, you need to be able to get it and not wait 24 to 48 hours for a response.
So I had a couple of questions that have been kind of thrown out. I actually scanned through all of social media. People in Evergreen Park, I think there's something like 10 to 15 social media group pages. People get on, they talk about neighborhood watch things. They talk about things that are different. And when you change their garbage collection, you start to notice some positives and you start to notice some questions. And so I thought it'd be great to have you on this week to ask a few of them. One of the things that I think a few people have noticed, you guys collect the garbage a little differently than the previous company that was here. There's a lot of manual work loading the garbage into the truck. I've seen some residents that are asking, what are they doing to these drivers? It seems like that's really difficult. It seems like it also increases the time that it takes to get the entire quadrant that they're working on in the village done. But it is getting done. It's just people are noticing that sometimes the garbage gets picked up that day a little bit later. So can you tell me why you do it the way you do it?
Great question. My understanding, the previous provider was handling it with what's considered in our industry a front load truck or a side loading truck. Technology has changed a lot in our industry. These trucks that used to be 2 or 3 man crews back in the 70s and 80s have evolved into some automation. First and foremost, our drivers are our top priority, the front line of our service. And there is a manual process to our style in Evergreen Park, which is a rear load collection style, where the carts come to the rear of the truck and the driver has what are called cart tippers that help him dump all the materials into the truck. And, we're committed to, keeping, efficiency and effectiveness throughout the community. And the rear load truck is what we viewed as the most efficient. Collection times, rear load trucks, they offer flexibility navigating through the streets, and whether, there is some alleys in Evergreen Park and there might be, growth with alley collection that the village might be inquiring on in the coming years. So that was something we looked at. It's caring for the cans. It's obviously you're manually handling them. So you're not seeing where an automated grabber comes and gets it and tips it in. Our drivers are grabbing things, as well as, Evergreen Park is what's considered a take-all community in our contract. You can put those bulks out and you can put additional garbage, household garbage outside the carts. which allow the driver to make sure everything gets in there and gets put into the truck, and there's not debris that flies around when he tips it over, tips the front load truck like you saw before when it goes up into the air, and things might fly out. And, it also helps with bigger items when residents do put out those bulk items that might not fit in the bucket that sits in front of a front load truck or a side load truck that can't even pick it up. So, that's what has been our focus.
The thing that I love about it, and this is just a personal anecdote for me, is I live on 99th Street and I've got, a driveway. And a lot of people in Evergreen Park have driveways. Not everybody does. Depends on your type of house. And it used to be that I knew the garbage had been picked up because one of my cans was blocking my driveway because it had been placed down because they're using automatics that are going up and down. So the truck never stops moving, right? They're picking it up and already leaving for the next place, and they're just automatically dropping the thing down. So now I got to get out of the car and move the can so I can just pull in, or I'd find my can laying on its side. I would see like the top of it opened up, all that different kind of stuff. I know early on, you guys would leave the lids open to show that garbage had been collected, but now it seems like what you do is you actually turn the can around with the lid closed, which I think is great. Plus, I never end up with my can sitting in the middle of my driveway. What was that adjustment like for you? Because is that something you normally do? Is that something you're doing special for the village now, turning those cans around?
Not just to turn it around, but to your point of the lids being left open, when you start a new community and drivers are getting acclimated to the routes, it helps the route supervisor, it helps the drivers as they figure out these streets and kind of the way things work within the village. When the cart lid is left open, it lets them know, hey, I was already down this street. But it also, lets a resident know that maybe he forgot to put it out, that, garbage was already, had come down the street and I forgot to put my cart out in time. Our drivers being able to dump the cans and put them back. Obviously, we want to make sure that they're not putting it in the way of a driveway. When you do leave the cart lids open, it can happen from time to time. You run into snow, you run into rain, and it makes it difficult for a resident to, bring that can back or have to dump it, whether they're an elderly resident or somebody that, might struggle with the size of the can and tipping out any of that rainwater or snow. But it gives that message to the resident, that we were down the street, our drivers now know the routes, and we should put it back in a place offset, not in the middle of the driveway.
Yeah, I love that. Not in the driveway. That's a good thing. The thing that I noticed is that I had gotten used to the route and the way that garbage got picked up because of where I live. Like, I don't live on, let's say, a normal block. I live on like a thing that comes out. Like, I'm on 99th. I'm not on a street that has a name on it. So I would actually, if I forgot to put the garbage can out, I could hear them coming up the block that's kitty corner to me, and I knew the guy was going to come up and make a right turn. But you guys don't necessarily use the same pattern, because I would imagine you're trying to learn the most efficient way to do things, so you're constantly your drivers are figuring out, this is the best way for me to collect everything. So kind of a two-part question. First off, how early should the can be out? Like, what's the latest it should be out? Is there a time in the morning it's got to be out there because you don't want to be missed? And then also, is the route changing constantly to try to find like the most efficient way of doing it? Is that why sometimes people are surprised that, this week they picked it up 2 hours later than the week before?
I mean, we try to keep our routes consistent. Obviously things come up, whether it might be traffic patterns or weather that might delay a start. Residents, we always encourage residents the night before your collection day, put that can out at the curb, or make it accessible for the driver to come get. The 6 a.m. is kind of the time that everyone should have their carts out at the curb by. And, we try to run those routes consistent with the time, but like you said, if we notice, hey, it's easier to start over here than it is over there, or maybe a driver's off or has to leave early, given a personal matter, and we're going to have teams work together, they might start somewhere and meet in the middle and be able to service that. But, the thing we run into in residential collection is people that forget to put their carts out and will call in and say, hey, I was missed. And as I mentioned earlier, technology continues to change in this industry. And, video cameras are now being put into the trucks. There's, cameras all around. Some trucks are are being purchased today with 30 plus cameras all throughout the side, the front, inside the cab, in the rear. And what we're working on installing is what are called dash cams, to where the driver's route is able to be monitored from our operational team, and see if a resident does call in and say, hey, I was missed, we can see that, maybe it was missed because the driver skipped right over the house as we watched the dash cam footage, or the resident didn't put it out and it wasn't out there. And it helps kind of alleviate a lot of the village's inquiries that they get from residents, and the message gets sent. And, eventually people start to realize, hey, I got to put these out by 6 a.m. And, Flood Brothers is aware if maybe I missed the 6 a.m. cutoff and they came at 6:05 or 7:05, whatever, to kind of get everything in line, because, we're trying to run routes and trying to be efficient. It's tough to have to go back and pick things up later in the day when you've already been in that area.
What did you think? Because I laughed about it. My cousin was in from out of town this past weekend, and she lives in Queens. What did you think about the fact that New York finally discovered garbage cans? Did that set a chuckle through Flood Brothers? Because I couldn't believe it. She's like, yeah, we're getting garbage cans. And I'm like, really? You're New York. What did you used to do? And she's like, well, you just throw the garbage out there and it sits there for 3 days in a bag, which is crazy to me. What did you think about that when you saw that press conference and heard about New York?
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously, I guess I'd say getting with the times. But, New York and Chicago are a little different. New York, when you go, you don't see too many in the metropolitan area. That I can come across alleyways. So the collection has to be done in the front off the street. Where can people store their carts? And, that's a difficult thing. But, it's definitely a game changer for the collection process when you have these carts. We actually service a community in the southwest suburbs in Bolingbrook, and the village of Bolingbrook originally did not have carts, and they pretty much had an ordinance that said you cannot put out personal cans. Everything has to be put out in a bag, and collection will occur. Well, when Flood Brothers took over in I believe it was May of 22, they allowed residents the ability to rent carts from us. But not every resident of the 25,000 residential units have carts. We're trying to get to halfway, and eventually, hopefully, we get it, everybody with it. But it's a more labor-intensive collection process. It's a process that can get dirty because it allows rodents to get into the bags as they sit there for a night, a day, whatever it might be. And it's good to see New York moving in that direction, and the automation, like I keep talking about with technology in our industry, is changing, and it's becoming more efficient when you have these carts. And our job is to pick up garbage and get in and out of a town safely and make sure everything's collected and left as clean as the village would expect, as would Flood Brothers expect. And I don't feel bags at the curb like New York was doing, or some other communities may, are the best to solve that. And the carts are a continually growing thing in the industry.
All right, Michael Flood, nice enough to jump on the EP podcast, answer a couple of questions. If I ever get another one, I'll make sure I reach out to you myself. But I know people can go to Flood Brothers. They have a website, floodbrothersdisposal.com. Number listed on the page, 630-261-0400. And I appreciate you jumping on, explaining a little bit about it. Like I said, I love now that the cans are back where I put them out in the morning. I don't even put them out. I make my 16-year-old do it. I haven't dragged the garbage can out in years. That's what you have kids for, Michael. You have somebody to drag them out there, right. But at least now the poor kid isn't walking out into the street trying to drag one that's laying on its side back in. So I appreciate that.
No, we appreciate obviously you having us on today and giving some insight to the residents, and appreciate our partnership with the Village of Evergreen Park, and look forward to a long and healthy and safe partnership. So thank you. And for us, it's hopefully the residents continue to see us throughout community events. We are excited to be a part of the 4th of July parade this year, and looking forward to that for years to come. So thank you.
Now that the show is over, if you have not voted in the Battle of Evergreen Park, get over to the eppodcast.com and vote. And remember, again, follow us on Instagram and Facebook as the rounds progress. and I will be checking in with you soon to tell you who survived and advanced right here on the EP Podcast.
It's the EP Podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast. Evergreen Park.